Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2023 BMW X5 and we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Stealth Hitch with the tow package on your vehicle here. Now before we get into a bunch of the other details, I want to explain the first and foremost and most obvious differentiator from the Stealth Hitch to all the other hitches available for the X5. The X5 is a very, very good looking car. And the last thing you want is a hitch receiver tube sticking out the back, especially one of this length. It kind of takes away from the car, especially if this hitch goes in 5 years, starts to rust. Well, the Stealth Hitch is designed so that you turn a knob, you can pop that receiver tube out, and then there's nothing left on your car to see. With the towing kit, you're going to get a receiver tube, which is for accessories only, so bike racks or cargo carriers. And then you're going to get a ball mount, which is the only thing you can tow a trailer with. You cannot put a ball mount inside of the receiver tube. Essentially what that is, or the reason for that, is because this has such micro movements inside of our receiver block up here. They don't want any movement here and here. So, and that's just going to happen with ball mounts. So that's why they want you to use their ball mount, slide that up in there, and then you're safe to tow a trailer. To operate this hitch, it is very, very simple. You simply find the opening, and once you get used to using this, it won't be nearly as difficult as it is the first time. But you find that opening, push the ball mount or your receiver tube up till you hear it click. You'll see or feel or see this handle twist into the lock position, and then you come on the other side, push the lock, and then cover it with the lock cover. Now when it comes to weight capacities, they are going to differ between the ball and the receiver tube. They're both going to be very, very high, so I don't think you have to worry about it. The receiver tube is going to have a max tongue weight capacity of 600 pounds. The ball mount is going to have a max tongue weight capacity of 800 pounds, and that's just based off the way that they're constructed. You shouldn't have any problems finding accessories to be able to use with that, because most accessories are not going to be rated for 600 pounds. So you should be all right with that. The max gross towing weight capacity for towing a trailer, which is going to be the load plus the trailer's weight included, that's going to be 8,000 pounds, and that is just for the ball mount. Now you want to be sure to double check your BMW's owner's manual to see what your vehicle and the submodel is capable of towing, and go with the lowest number between the BMW and these components. Now some measurements so you know what you guys are getting. The receiver tube is going to stick out actually pretty obnoxiously far past the edge of our fascia. From these little nibs here, it sticks out about 3 inches past. Usually the face of our hitch here is going to be underneath the fascia. And the reason why we give a hitch pin hole measurement, which for this one is 2.5 inches, is typically because that hitch pin hole is usually underneath our bumper. This is actually really, really helpful when it comes to accessories, because it's going to get the accessory a little bit further away from your car, which might affect your tongue weight a little bit more, but it's going to give you a lot of clearance when it comes to folding those accessories up to the back of your car. You should not have to worry about any accessory out there, bike rack or cargo carrier, coming in contact with the back of your vehicle because of how far our hitch receiver tube is sticking out. One downfall about this is that if you leave this tube in here, or if you leave the ball mount in there, either one, it is going to be a shin knocker. So if you're walking around the back of your car at night or through your garage trying to slide past the back of it, you are going to hit your shin on there. The benefit is it's removable. So you just kind of have to keep an eye on it. Remember it's there if you still have it in there. If not, just take it out. From the ground to the top inside the receiver tube, it's about 14.5 inches. That's high enough off the ground. You shouldn't have to worry about any accessories dragging on the ground if you're going in or out of steeper inclines. Just keep in mind that if you're looking for a cargo carrier or a bike rack, you do have to worry about your rear hatch and the small little tailgate that's on the back of this. So if you watch some of our videos, you can see how certain bike racks and cargo carriers are going to fit on different vehicles. You can get a pretty good idea of what's going to fit on the back of your X5. And with the tow package, I highly recommend, if you're going to get a Stealth Hitch, get the tow package, even if you don't think you're going to need it, because it's a pain in the butt to have to go back and install just the wiring. You have to take this whole hitch apart in order to get the safety chain loops on. So you might as well get the whole kit. It is a little bit more costly, but it's definitely worth it in the end, especially if you go to sell your vehicle or trade it in. That way you have all the components so that the end user can always tow a trailer with their vehicle. But these are going to be your safety chain loops. They will fit safety chains of a few different sizes and shapes. I recommend using S-hook styles like this. The clevis style is going to be a little larger and a little bit more difficult to get into place. So if you have a trailer in your household, just switch them out to the S-hooks like this. We have them on our website, or you can switch over to safety cables. Like we mentioned earlier, your 7-pole wiring is going to be right here. So whenever you hook up to your trailer, you just simply take your 7-pole and plug it right in there. If your trailer does not have a 7-pole harness, luckily this kit comes with a 7 to 4-pole adapter. So you just plug this into your 7-pole on your Stealth hitch, and then plug your 4-pole trailer into this adapter. Now, as far as the installation goes for this hitch, it is going to be a pretty extensive install. You do have to remove a lot of components on the inside and outside of your vehicle. We will have to remove the rear fascia. Putting the hitch in place is probably the easiest part about it. You just simply take your bumper beam off after you remove the 8 nuts, and then put your hitch up in its place. So you will take your bumper beam and get rid of that. I would say I install hitches all the time, and this one took me about 5.5 hours to do, that's pretty long for a hitch install. I highly recommend, if you don't think that you can do this installation yourself, that you check out our dealer portal, find a dealer near you that can install this hitch. You should be able to get it done with no problems. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at it. To begin our installation, we're going to need to be in the rear hatch of our vehicle. And we're going to have to remove some side panels in order to access some wiring. So we'll pull down on that. We're going to set all of these panels off to the side to get them out of our way. Now on our passenger side, we're going to have another panel here. And this one's a little bit trickier to get to, so if you have a trim panel tool, that's definitely going to help. We'll pop that out. We'll set that off to the side. Up here at the front of our storage area, right behind our back seats, we're going to have these little plastic caps that will have to pop up. If you can't get them with your finger, just use a small screwdriver. And then we'll take a T30 Torx bit and remove the screws. Now we need to take a flathead screwdriver and pop this retention ring out so we can remove this strut. Just like that. Now we should be able to take our panel completely out of our vehicle. We'll have 7 push pin fasteners we have to remove to get this panel out. Just take a flathead screwdriver, slide it down in there, pop the head of the push pin fastener out, and then the base should follow. We're going to have 4 T20 Torx bit screws that we have to remove to get this threshold panel out. Right down here, going into the back of our vehicle. We'll want to grab this plastic panel here, pull out on it, and it should just pop loose. Get that out of the way. Then on the inside of this little square, we'll have a little door that we have to remove in order to access that hex nut. Then you'll want to take an 8mm socket and remove the bolt on the inside. This also may be a Torx bit screw, so just depending on the model that you have or the year that you have, this may change. Now we'll take a trim panel tool, pop this plug out, and you'll see a 10mm bolt behind it. We'll take that out. Now we need to pop this trim panel piece off. You'll have some fasteners in here. Just pull straight back on this piece. You'll be able to pull it out of your way. Just be careful because there's a wire attached to it. Then on the back side, we're going to have a another push pin fastener that we'll have to remove. Now we're going to have two more plastic rivets down here at the bottom holding our panel in place. Now we'll just need to pull out on this panel, get it removed. You want to work the front and the back, making sure that you're pulling out evenly on it. And we'll have two wiring harnesses that we have to carefully remove to get this panel out of our way. Unplug the 12 volt. Then we've got another one right here with a really small plug right there. Let's take this panel and set it off to the side. At this point in the install, you might be wondering if you have to repeat that same process on the other side, because that's a lot of times that's what we do for installs, is you have to do one thing, the same thing on the other side. But for this vehicle, you don't have to. Essentially, we did all of that to gain access to one nut that's holding our passenger side rear taillight in place. On the driver's side, we already have access to it. But it's this fuse panel right here that's getting in our way, and that's why we needed to remove the whole panel so that we could get to the bolt. Take a 12mm socket, and behind this little flap here, the sound insulation, we want to take that 12mm nut off. We'll be very careful not to lose that. On our driver's side, we'll have the same 12mm nut that we have to remove, and it's up here behind our soundproofing. Then we'll take a trim panel tool, and we want to pop these plastic panels off the sides here. We're going to have a couple of Torx bit head screws that we'll have to remove. Take a T30 Torx bit that we used earlier and remove these screws. You want to keep a hand on this taillight because these two bolts are the last two things holding it in place. Then once you get the taillight loose, you just want to slowly move it out. And then underneath, we're going to have this plug that we have to unlock in order to remove it. Pop that lock loose, then push on this little black tab, pop our light out. We'll do the same thing on our driver's side. Now for the next steps in our process, we're going to be doing this same thing on the other side of the vehicle. We're going to tape off these seams because we're going to be removing the rear fascia. We tape off this seam and then this seam here because we have to pull this out in order to get to a bolt. So we'll take this piece. There's a little tab down here in the bottom that you can see just popped out right there. You just need to pop that out and then slowly work your way up, popping this trim out. This is a lot easier than some other vehicles. Some vehicles are very, very stubborn. But pop these out and enough space to get to this 8mm head bolt right here. I like to go a little bit further up, just pop that out. I like to take a little piece of paper towel, fold it up, just so that that plastic stays out of our way. We'll take an 8mm socket and get that bolt removed. Then you want to take a trim panel tool, slide in behind your reflector here, and if you just twist, you should be able to get the one to pop out. And then there's going to be another hook right behind here, so you want to be very, very careful not to bend it too far because you can break this end off. Take our trim panel tool, stick it in here, pry out, and give it a little twist. Just like that. And I'll pop that out of there. Then take an 8mm socket and get that bolt removed. And we're going to take 14 screws out of the bottom of our rear fascia that's holding it to our vehicle. You use a 10mm socket and an 8mm socket in order to do this. Then we'll start lowering these panels. Looks like we are going to have one more screw. Oh, nope, it just popped out. So we're good there. Take these panels down and just set them off to the side. Now we can start pulling our fascia off. We're going to take our hand, slide it behind our panel here, and just start prying this off. Just take your trim panel tool or a flathead screwdriver, whichever you have. Stick that down in there. Pop those tabs loose. They're all loose there. So we need to start working on the center section. Now you can see these 4 tabs on the underside of our tailgate here. There's a little bitty tab that we have to push on it in order for it to get it to release. Sometimes it helps to take a Allen key in order to push those little tabs down. You can see here that we've got all those out, so we can keep pulling on our fascia. What you want to do is you just want to pull evenly, making sure none of your fasteners got reclipped. Just want to pull out on the vehicle. Making sure that all these components. Now, if this is giving you trouble right here, all we did was we just put our hands on the inside here, kind of pinched in on this plastic, and it released these fasteners here. Now, with everything loose, you can pull it out. You want to be careful because on our passenger side here, we're going to have another wiring harness we have to unhook. We've got 2 tabs, one on either side. Push those tabs in. We'll disconnect the harness. Just like that. Then we can set our fascia in a safe place. On each side, we'll have a 13mm nut we have to remove from our exhaust hanger bracket. We don't have to worry about supporting this muffler because we do have a cross brace right up here that will limit the exhaust from sagging too far. And we'll take a trim panel tool. You just want to pop this wiring harness out so that it can hang freely. Take your flathead screwdriver. We'll move to the top here. Take these push pin fasteners out. This is going to help give us access on both sides to the factory nuts. Then take your flathead screwdriver again and remove the 5 push pin fasteners that are holding this sensor here on the back of our bumper beam. Then take an 18mm socket and get these 8 nuts removed, 4 on each side. Once all the hardware has been removed from our bumper beam, we'll take our beam and carefully pull it off. We will be getting rid of this because the hitch is going to take its place. Now we'll take our hitch, lift it up into place, making sure our wiring is not caught behind it. Then we'll take the factory nuts and put them on the top to start with, because we do have one more bracket to add to each side. The brackets that we're adding on here are going to be our new exhaust hanger brackets. So you want to put them on the appropriate sides. This is our driver's side and what it's going to look like. It'll hang right over top of our exhaust hangers. So once you have those in place, then put your other two nuts on and then tighten them all down. Then you want to come back with a torque wrench and torque these down to the specifications and the instructions. Now we can take our two plastic panels and put those back up into place. Then we can take our exhaust, lift it up into place, make sure you get that peg in place, and slide our bolt and washer that comes with our kit. Slide it up through the hole and follow that with a flange nut. And you want to take a 1/2-inch socket and a 1/2-inch wrench and tighten these up. The next step in our process is going to be assembling the hitch block. So this is going to take some skill, because you're going to need about 3 hands in order to do this. But you're going to take your bracketry, slide your bolts through it, take your other bracket for your toe loops, slide those through it, or your safety chain loops, then lift your block up into place, slide those bolts through the block. And we'll have to take the other side of our safety chain loops, kind of twist it on. That's why this odd shape is in our bracket here, to go around our knob. Twist it up, slide those bolts back through, and follow it up with a nut on each one of them. Then we'll take a 15/16 socket and wrench and get these tightened down. And you want to torque these down to the specifications in your instructions. Now moving on in our installation process, we're going to have to do some wiring, because we have this tow package. We need to wire up our 7-pole. Right here on the back of our vehicle, I went ahead and pre-drilled it because it's kind of particular. You'll have a little nib here. It's a little dent in the rubber grommet, and then there will be a lower one. You want to drill right through that lower one and basically follow the same pattern as this wiring harness, the direction that it is. You definitely want to feel back behind inside the vehicle to see where that wiring harness is curved on the inside, and take your drill bit and drill right up at that angle. Then you want to tape off your wiring harness. We just used a piece of airline tubing here, and we're going to pull our wiring harness through that grommet. And the part that you want to pull through is going to have the black sleeve on it. And I may actually have to drill out this hole a little bit more, because that black sleeve is getting caught. So we've got our hole drilled out a little bit more, and I went up to about a 1/2-inch hole, a little bit more, and this is very, very tight. So we'll pull this out, and you want to pull out enough to where you can hide the wiring nice and tight up here, but then still get it comfortably hooked up to your 7-pole. Our 7-pole mounting bracket will be right here, and our 7-pole is going to be facing straight down. So we kind of line this up over here, and this should be more than enough. After you have your wire run, I like to go ahead and wire up our 7-pole before we wire up the inside of the vehicle, because then you can really get the slack pulled back if you don't need all of this out here. The way that we're going to wire up our 7-pole, if you follow along with me, you have this notch here at the bottom. We're going to have a series of 7 screws with little metal clips holding them in. And the way that it's going to get wired, starting here at the bottom to the right. You will have some lettering on here, but sometimes they're pretty hard to read or they're not right. But we'll start here going counterclockwise. You'll have white, yellow, brown, black, green, blue, and then your purple or violet wire is going to go in the center pin. And once you get that wired up, you can take it, push it back into place. I guess that's something I left out a little bit. You will have to take a screw out of the side here, a screw out of the side here in order to pull this center section out. A lot of 7-poles will come apart from the back side, but this one, it's the insides that come out. So we'll pull that back, pull it back down in there. And you want to be sure to line that notch up with the notch in our cup in here. And you can see that there at the bottom. So we'll have to take this straight down in there. Make sure it gets slid all the way back down in there to where that is flush. Make sure your extra wiring is out of there. And we'll take the 2 screws and sink those back into each side. We use the hardware included in our kit. You will get an included 7-pole. You mount your 7-pole up to the bracket using, again, the included hardware. We took our wire, ran it up, zip tied it along the back side of our hitch, and then took a little bit of our excess wiring and shoved it back through the hole, and then we can wrap that up inside. Now inside the back of our vehicle, this is what our wiring harness looks like on the other side. We're going to have the the blue and purple wires, which we will not be connecting today because this is for a brake controller and we're not going to be using that. So we're not going to connect those. We are going to be connecting the black, white, brown, red, green, and yellow. The yellow wire you will have to route over to the driver's side of the vehicle. The rest of our connections are going to be made on the passenger side. I'm going to go ahead and get these wires routed, make the connections, and come back and show you how I did it. So I've got everything wired up here. We'll start off on our driver's side. You can see I've got our box mounted up against the little plastic panel inside. You just use the double-sided tape that comes in your kit. And then I connected our green wire to the green wire with the blue stripe on our harness. And I connected our brown wire to our gray wire with a purple stripe. And you want to be sure to check these functions as you're going through them. To make sure that they are matching what they say in the instruction manual. I made sure all of ours did, and they did match. Then we took our yellow wire, our white wire, and our black wire, ran it across. The black wire you want to connect to our battery. With the fuse connector that comes in your kit, just connect your black wire to the fuse connector. Make sure the fuse is not in there when you're making that connection. Use the ring terminal that's already on this harness, connect it to the positive side. The white wire and yellow wire continued on. We connected the white wire to this universal ground point using the other ring terminal included in your kit. It's kind of looks like a fork. And then we took our yellow wire and connected it to our green wire with a blue stripe. The left and right turn are going to be the same type of wire, so don't let that confuse you. The red wire in our process will not be used because our vehicle doesn't use the signal in that way. That is supposed to be our brake wire, but our running light signal and our turn signals will work together in order to give that signal out. Before we put our rear fascia back on, we want to plug our tester into our wiring harness to make sure everything's working properly, and then we can reassemble the car if everything checks out. We'll go through our basic functions to make sure everything's working properly. We'll start with our left turn, our right turn, our brake lights, and our running lights. And you can see that our 12-volt power is working properly. To begin reinstalling our rear fascia, you want to start with this bumper sensor here on the back. Take your push pin fasteners, pop those back into place. And we're only going to be using 3 because the support bar they give us here does not go all the way to the end, but 3 should be just fine. After we get this in place, we can lift our fascia back on and put it back on the way that we took it off. Now with an extra set of hands, we'll lift our fascia back up into place. Be sure to get that wiring harness plugged back in. Now for our rock guard here, you'll notice that if we were to just put it back up the way that it's designed from before, it's not going to go up correct. So we've got a little bit of a pre-cut out. This must be for the factory hitch, but because our Stealth hitch has the wiring over to the side, we're going to have to cut out a little bit more here. So essentially you just want to trace out the same shape, just continued on to this side over here. So I'm just going to take a multi-tool and get that done. Now that we've got this opening cut out, I'm just going to take my razor blade and kind of clean up these edges. With our rock panel trimmed out, we'll just line everything back up and put all of our screws back in the bottom of our panels. Well guys, once you have the rear fascia back in place and everything's back to where it was the way we had it before, that's going to do it for the installation. Hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Stealth hitch is right for you in your 2023 BMW X5.